Hello, Glenbard South. My name is Brian Fischer, and I thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself. I currently teach at Illinois Central College in East Peoria. I've taught here as an adjunct faculty member for 7 years. I teach Composition 1 and 2, Developmental Reading and Writing, and Dual Credit Composition. Before teaching at ICC, I've really done a lot of different things, so I'll kind of try to run through those quickly. I was a United States Peace Corps volunteer for 2 years. I taught ESL in Uzbekistan. I also taught high school for 4 years. In high school, I taught sophomore lit, composition, and journalism, and I was a newspaper advisor. And I've also spent a year and a half in Kenya. I was the director of a children's home and director of health education at the clinic. So I've also been on school boards. I've been elected 4 times to my city's school boards. I've been president and vice president, and I've found it really interesting to see schools from that kind of other side of things, the long-range planning, strategic planning kind of direction of things. And I find it informs my classroom quite a bit, really. And then I've been a stay-at-home parent. I stayed home with the kids when they were younger and went back to work teaching at ICC when they entered middle school. So if there's a glue that holds all that together, it's really that I've always enjoyed working with and for young people, and so it's been a good life so far. I do look forward to getting back to high school. It's truly my favorite place to work. So what goes into the essential teaching of English? That is, I think a great English classroom has to have it's all about creating an environment, right? But there's a lot of work that goes into creating that environment. But a good English classroom has to have is a discourse environment, right? It's all about discussing and learning and expressing that through writing and through careful reading. So obviously there's subject area knowledge. It's really important. Having a specific area that you're really knowledgeable about is useful because I think it gives you an understanding of what expertise looks like that you can express to your students. For me, a really strong English classroom is one where you look at the course outcomes, determine what are some assessments that will test to see if students have learned those or be able to express those outcomes, right? For me, in a composition and literature classroom, that's usually going to be an essay of some sort or some kind of presentation. So, and I usually embed those within units of instruction because that helps engage students, because engagement is clearly very important in an English classroom. So then once those assessments are designed, there's a skills inventory for the students. What skills does it take to complete that assessment? What skills do the students have? What do they not have? What do they need help with? And so then you scaffold the teaching of those skills in a very careful way, and make sure that they get each skill before you move them to the next. And by the end, they can create this kind of holistic product, right? That a composition, which is really contains so many different skills that you pull from reading and writing. So that's one of the main things. Group work is really important in an English classroom. I'm a strong believer in group work. It's a great way to differentiate learning. So I don't think a good group work is, hey guys, make a list and bring it back. I mean, you can do that, but that's not where group work really works. Group work works more like, Lev Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. You take some students who can't do something on their own, but you put them in a group and they can, because they share skills with each other. The kid who can do a close reading of a text can pull that part of it out. Another student can express that in writing, and maybe a third student can put it into a visual presentation. They're each learning from each other as they do that, and then when they leave that group environment, they're much more likely to be able to do it on their own, especially with practice and close supervision from a teacher. So I think group work is super important in an English classroom. I like to use gateway activities to get students into activities. I always understand that it's my job as a teacher to get the students engaged and interested. If they're not learning, I think the English teacher has to go back and say, it's my fault, I need to do this better. And so then students need to see themselves in the literature that we teach. Totally agree with that. Multiple voices are incredibly important. And I see this question as kind of 2 ways. One, what texts do I bring into the room? And then how are those texts setting up an environment in which students are interacting with those texts as their true selves. So I always bring a broad array of voices in, race, culture, gender identity, and even just life skills that they want. Do they want to be a basketball player, a mechanic, a professor, an oceanographer? Those are all different things that are important to bring in because students need to be able to see themselves in their texts and imagine their futures, right? So at Illinois Central College, they gave us the opportunity to use the textbook or create open educational resources. So I jumped on the chance to make open educational resources. I started bringing my own text in, creating my own materials, and it allowed me to design the class much more for my students and modify even within the semester, right? So for example, in composition, we opened the semester with Richard Wright, Richard Rodriguez, talking about Spanish in the home, having to transition to English at school. Sometimes Katha Pollitt has a great essay that is full of a good rebuttal kind of argument on gay marriage. So, and what that happens when the students see those texts in the first, 1 or 2 weeks is wow, this is a class that has substance. This is a class that involves the real world. And it's okay, whatever kind of person I am, this is a safe space. And so with time, they can decide how much they want to engage their real selves in that class. That's really important. And so this gets me to identities. I base a lot of my literature and my reading work with the students on Louise Rosenblatt's transactional theory, Judith Langer's concept of envisionment. That students need to engage with the text on a personal level. That when if they're gonna understand a text and not just decode it, they need to engage with it on a personal level so that they can make those inferences, they can make implications, and then express that. It's kind of a growth thing for them, right? And I think that's really important for the English classroom. For reflective practice, I do love reflective practice, both in terms of long-term planning, as how am I going to teach this course better next year? I always revise my classes, but also just in a real-time thing, hey, that lesson didn't go so well, or half the kids didn't get it. How do I redo this? How do I circle back and fix this? I did a great opportunity that I had was at Illinois Central College. When I went there, I'd been out of teaching for 13 years, and a lot had changed. For example, Google had been a search engine, and when I went back, Google is Google Docs, Forms, Slides, and they are shareable. Students can work all together on them. Amazing changes, right? And text had gone from just being like printed words on a paper to digital texts, strong visual components. Podcasts are auditory texts. So I wanted to incorporate all that into my classroom, make it more dynamic. So there was an Assessment Academy professional book reading kind of group, professional development book reading group. Sarah Parley-Air ran it. She was a great English professor there. And so I ended up doing that Assessment Academy with Sarah and then working with her about 30 or 60 minutes a week for the rest of the year, and really revised one of my classes so that it became, I created a unit that was a research unit. Students got into groups for the whole unit. They chose their topic. They shared Google Docs and the other kind of Google ecosystem, shared annotated working bibliography. I gave them templates for writing process that they worked through. They created posters that had, a claim and then the evidence, visual components presented to the class. And it really helped bring everything that the students had done the whole semester together. Really a great opportunity. So I loved that. And it was really, it's a great model for going forward. As far as what value I can bring to Glenbard South, I hope a lot, right? I've got a lot of experience with diverse learners and ESL. I've taught English as a second language to 6th through 12th graders, in Central Asia with a blackboard only, and then notebooks that they work in. I've taught kids at ICC who are, you end up with English as a second language learner students in your composition class. And you're essentially teaching them along with everybody else. So a kind of detract environment. I can do that. And I've got a lot of experience with that. I also have a really unique educational background. I'm somebody who's been teaching for a long time, but because I've had to keep uh, entering new teaching environments, I've always had to refresh and reinvent myself. And I think that I'll bring that to Glenbard South. And with all of my committee work from the college and school board and so on, I think I can add a lot to the faculty. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope to meet you sometime.